The Fallout show is the video game adaptation I've needed for so long. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed The Last of Us show, but Fallout captures the essence of the games so well, along with providing much more authentic and nuanced ways of showing us new things that make the story so much better and entertaining to watch. I had very few expectations going into this show, for I've been disappointed with adaptations of beloved series being butchered in the past, but also because I had very little knowledge that this show even existed. For a single trailer was all I remember hearing about for this project. Yet a friend of mine reached out to me and said I should watch it, and from episode 1, I was glued into my seat from start to finish. There's a lot to unpack with a show like this, and I plan to talk about all the things season 1 did that I loved and appreciated, but also continue to shine a light on the series because of how well made it is. I genuinely suggest giving the show a watch because I will be diving into spoiler territory and deep diving into a decent amount of important character arcs early on, but if that doesn't bother you, then by all means, hear me out. Of everything, I'd like to start by appreciating how well made the lead characters in this show are, which would be Lucy, Maximus, and the Ghoul. The first episode does a great job setting up each of the 3 characters that I'll be talking about. But first, let's talk about Lucy. I'm sure there were a few people in the incel space who freaked out seeing a woman be the lead in the Fallout series, and if they're still upset, that makes me happy, because they made her character with a lot of care put into it, and she's awesome. The first episode does a really good job setting up her character by immersing the audience into her lifestyle as a vault dweller. As a viewer, it feels oddly uncomfortable the way some of these characters speak and talk, and how their personalities are portrayed up front. Lucy is the epitome of like a bubblegum girl, someone who sees life as the most joyous thing in the world. And Ella Purnell, the actress who plays Lucy, her big eyes help capture the childish naivety that ushers this show's story forward. I also enjoy how the show incorporated certain aspects of the game into it, like how Lucy's skill levels are repeated to the audience up front.
Repair skills. I enjoy participating in the Young Pipers Association, which keeps me active. Speech skills. My primary passion is teaching American history with a focus on ethics.
It's little aspects like this that make the show much more authentic and watchable, for it isn't trying to change the game in any way, but preserve what made fans love it in the first place by adding a little spin on it to make it work for a live-action adaptation. But anyway, this leads to the inciting incident that kicks the story of the whole season into action. When Lucy is being prepared to get married to someone in Vault 32, her sister Vault, her soon-to-be husband, and the people he came in with are actually people from the surface who turned Vault 33 into spaghetti as they straight up murder like 30 plus people right after her wedding. And the leader, someone named Moldover, captures Lucy's father, and in order to get her father back, she must retrieve the head of a scientist guy who puts some chip in his neck that everyone seems to want to have, including the other 2 main characters, Maximus and the Ghoul. In terms of Maximus, I was very indifferent to his character when the series started because he just seemed like a straight up loser. Because the show does a great job of making him seem less than the sum of his parts. He gets shit on by his comrades, his superiors make him do the worst jobs, and he has very few friends. But over time, and as the series keeps going on, you start to really feel for the guy, and his ambitions to be this massive armor-suited man makes sense. Maximus being a part of the Brotherhood, which is basically just their world's military, is just some sort of cult. And it's a nice comparison to Lucy's Vault, with both communities being headstrong in their ways, but also spewing a lot of propaganda, making it difficult for Maximus or Lucy to know what's truly accurate or not. And as the season progresses, that uncertainty really builds as the 2 of them venture further out into the world and see aspects of both of their lives they didn't experience before. Maximus's mission is to help one of the knights out as his squire and retrieve the head that Lucy is also going after. But when that knight gets attacked by a bear and is revealed to be played by Michael Rappaport, which was hilarious, by the way, Maximus realizes that the dude is a coward, an asshole, and not the type of hero he thought the knights were when he used to look up to them as a little kid. So he just lets the dude die in front of him, forgetting the traditions of the Brotherhood and just taking the mission on himself. Honestly, here's where I started to question if Maximus was that guy or not, because letting a dude die just to take his armor is exactly what any gamer would do if given that situation. With this armor, he then tracks down where the target is and runs into Lucy, but also the Ghoul in a jam-packed action sequence in a town called Philly. No, not Philadelphia, but Philly with an F. And honestly, both places are dirty and firefights get started in both places, so in my mind, they could be the same place. The final person we need to discuss is the Ghoul, for he is probably my favorite character in this show so far, and his backstory plus the side quests he goes on within the season were really entertaining. Walton Goggins stays winning in 2024 with Cecil and now the Ghoul under his belt. Bro is killing it this year. His story as the Ghoul is truly fascinating though, as the audience gets to experience not only his backstory before the nuclear bombing even started that created the wastelands, but also as the audience deals with this constant mystery as to how he's lived as long as he has and why he continues to live. Before the bombs dropped, Ghoul was named Cooper Howard and was a Hollywood actor famous for Western movies in the 60s. Inevitably, he becomes the sole advocator for Vault-Tec, a famous company that advertises the vaults that Lucy is a part of 200 years later. He then becomes the famous Vault Boy character the games have made iconic. The reason for being the mascot of the company turns out to be because his wife was a board member of Vault-Tec and he wants to obviously make her happy, plus it makes them a lot of money. But as the show continues to flash back and forth between his time before the war and after, the looming mystery behind the bombings and how it's connected to Lucy and Maximus keeps building, and for me, kept me hooked from start to finish. And that's something I think the show does phenomenally. The show's ability to keep a mystery like Ghoul's past, Vault 33's secrets, and Maximus's intentions, and much more, a consistent and intriguing part of the show was awesome to watch. As someone who's trying not to binge shows anymore and take the time to engage properly and digest a show's storytelling, this show made it very difficult to do that because all I wanted to do was continuously learn what each mystery was setting up and how it was going to go about it. The more Lucy's little brother Norm, played by Rico from Hannah Montana, started poking around and finding the dead bodies of Vault 32 just lying around had me so curious as to figure out what was going on behind the scenes, especially with how it connected to his mother and father later down the road in the season. Literally everything the show sets up in mystery gets a proper payoff by the end of the season, which for a lot of shows can't be said for, especially rare for a live action adaptation to get this right, or to do it at all. Another aspect of the show that was just a ton of fun was its approach towards authentic locations and set design. I mean, each frame in the show feels exactly like the universe Bethesda created 25 plus years ago. The vaults carry that weird but comfortable energy a multi-billion-dollar corporation would build. The wastelands look like the world has actually been radioactive for hundreds of years, and the little towns that make up the surface world, like Philly for example, are packed with a lot of cool rundown shops or old dilapidated buildings that add a lot of character to the world they live in. A big criticism a lot of people had with the live action Avatar: The Last Airbender, myself included, was how the characters' wardrobe looked too fake. It was way too polished, making it seem more like a play than an actual world they lived in. Had they been in a war for over 100 years, the clothes they'd be wearing would be a lot different than perfectly polished coats with no dirt or grime on them. With Fallout though, you can see how every character's clothes are dirty depending on where they live or the social class they're a part of. The vault dwellers perfectly stand out amongst the surface dwellers since their bright blue and yellow jumpsuits contrast those of the dark and destroyed clothing of those on the surface. And Ghoul's makeup is outstanding. Every time you see his face, you think it could be a real thing. Plus, his clothing looks disheveled and worn out, like he's been a gunslinger for 200 years. It's incredible what creators who actually love the property they're working on will create if given the ability to go all in on reciprocating things of the game into live action with care and love behind it. The writing is nuanced, with each character having moments to shine, which keeps the audience hooked, and set pieces that look authentic, and storytelling that keeps you engaged for all 8 episodes. The show is technically a part of the Fallout lore, but it doesn't try to replicate any story from any of the games, which I think is awesome. It's what I wish the Avatar show did instead of recreating the story of the cartoon. Having the liberty of crafting its own identity, but still appreciating aspects of the game is the best mix of utilizing the IP, but also creating something new. It's just so goddamn refreshing to see. Along the way, you really start to feel for each character associated in the world, especially the developing relationship between the big three, who each have a role in each other's stories that intertwine from the beginning to the very end. And by the end of the season, the show has already hooked you into the authenticity of the series that you just can't wait for a season 2, which was confirmed, which I'm very happy about because this show is awesome. Like I mentioned before, the build up to the finale with most of the show's unanswered questions being answered was done very well, but it also leads into great setup for where season 2 will go. For instance, where and why and how are the Ghoul's family still alive? What will happen to Norm now that he's stuck in Vault 31? And who is Lucy's dad going to see by the end of the season? It's very exciting, and I'm hoping the season takes as much care and appreciation as it did for season 1 into the second, third, or however many seasons this show goes on for. It's awesome to watch another Amazon banger that truly appreciates the source material it originated from. Invincible, The Boys, and now Fallout, man. Amazon knows how to make adaptations really good. They're on a complete roll. Hope it doesn't stop. Paramount Plus and Netflix should learn a thing or two from them. If I had to pick some scenes that had me absolutely floored during the season, I'd say the first episode where the surface dwellers murder most of Lucy's vault was insane. For a first episode, this shit had me confused and ready to learn more about what was going on. The scene where Maximus and his squire fight that one weird fish thing was hilarious, but also really cool. The rundown mart where Lucy unleashes all of the ghouls from their chambers and helps Walton Goggins keep living. The scene where Norm, along with his friend, explore Vault 32 and find all of the dead bodies lying around. And pretty much all of episode 8 was phenomenal. These are simply some amazing highlights, but the whole show is worth the watch and is great literally all the way through. I highly recommend every person who watches my channel, and trust me, even with the smallest of amounts, to take the time to watch the show because I was not expecting it to be as authentic and downright great as it was. I actually had a discussion with one of my close friends and my brother about how good the show was because none of us were expecting it to be as good as it turned out to be. There was a lot of great moments sprinkled throughout that made us rethink certain lines of dialogue because they were just written so good. As I mentioned previously, the writers being as immersed into the IP and living through the project really shines through here, as everything about this first season is an absolute work of art, and I can't wait to see what these amazing creators have in store for future seasons. Alright everybody, that's enough from me. Please hit that like and subscribe button, that would make my week, and continue to watch some of my other videos provided here. Check out the members tab if you want access to these videos early, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out.